Circumstance, it always starts with you. Playing the fool, setting the rules, you got to end it too. Couldn't have given me that. How fast it goes, the time we take to lose. Over the fence and making a mess, so tell me what to do. Couldn't have given me that. The price. We ain't catching up in time, dear. It's all behind the eyes. I wanna war romance. I wanna war romance. I wanna take your hand and hold it through the night. We'd no idea the end was quite so near, and now it's too late. We're lying in wait. Oh, put your faith in the news. There's only dreaming to do. These heavy hours that only love devise. Cut off the rope, surrender to gods. I wish I had one now. Couldn't have figured it out. We ain't gonna win the fight, dear. They say it's worth the ride. We ain't catching up in time, dear. It's all behind the eyes. I wanna war romance. I wanna war romance. I wanna take your hand, honey. It's our only chance. It's our only chance. I need Thank you very much. Thank you. My name's Georgia. This is Stu and Ollie. Congratulations on your big day. It's very exciting. Go team. I'm sorry for accidentally wearing blue, but Stu's playing a red keyboard, so that counts. And I'm a redhead, so that's good. It's really a pleasure to be invited to play something like this. I think being here shows that Labor supports the arts, and that's really significant to us. So thank you so much. It's been a really, really tumultuous few years for our industry, but we're slowly climbing back. And music is just so important to our culture. It's, you know, it's expression, refuge, and it tells our stories, which are very unique. And so, yeah, thank you for the support. We're going to do one more song. This is about being powerless to somebody's charms, which feels relevant to politics. And just for fun, it does also reference my fantasy celebrity husband. So just something to look out for. Thanks again. After another weekend of antagony, I'm out in disguise, feigning sparkle and shameless self-certainty. I knit the wool for my eyes. Long nights I've laid awake, penning stories and songs for the sake of one day you'll go come apart with a full change of heart. Break it off, break it off. Oh, our sunset won't dawn, pull the pin and be gone. Break it off, break it off. I know I'll never have the heart to leave you if I know, if I know, if I know, if I know. Do me a favor and hide all the sweets away. I've got no control. Give me a word, there's still time to go roots and all. I'll renew, be reborn. Don't say another word, or I'll swear to myself that I've heard one day you come apart with a full change of heart. Break it off, break it off. Oh, our sunset won't dawn, pull the pin and be gone. Break it off, break it off. I know I'll never have the heart to leave you if I'd known, if I'd known, if I'd known, if I'd known, if I'd known. 'Cause when I face the facts, we're a plea of a mess, not the peak of the base. And you're not a patch on Benedict Cumberbatch. Break it off, break it off. Break, 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 break it off. Oh, if I'd known, Thank you so much.
More and more we hear you're struggling with the rising costs of living. Labor's Fresh Start plan will stop the privatisation of our assets and create a publicly owned, clean energy corporation focused on a reliable grid and putting downward pressure on bills. After 12 years of a Liberal government, it's time for a fresh start for New South Wales.
That was incredible. Please give it up for Georgia Mooney. This is why it's so important we support our local artists and have a thriving music scene. Good morning. My name is Ash. I'm the Labor candidate for the seat of Oakley. I'd first like I'd first like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we're meeting on today, the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders gathered here today. Please welcome Brendan Kieran to give a welcome to country. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brendan. I'm the Cultural Representative and Cultural Educator for Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council in Sydney. And our role as Aboriginal Land Council under the Land Rights Act, we are the cultural authority and the guardians and custodians of land within our boundaries. I'm here this morning to welcome you to country. And before I do, I'll share a very brief history of country. It's important we understand that there's no traditional owners left within Sydney. And the definition of traditional owner is must have an ongoing continual connection to country. And unfortunately, that was severed the day Cook landed. And in less than 50 years, and I feel a little bit sorry for Cook because he was just doing his job at the end of the day. But unfortunately, the boat he was on was a floating incubator for disease. And in less than 50 years, 80% of our people was wiped out due to disease, smallpox and the flu. And there was instances of the English realising this and so deliberately infecting clothing and blankets and handing that out to our communities. So in effect, using chemical warfare. The second wave brought what I call the land grab. And with the land grab came the massacres and the slaughters. It's also important to understand that white infrastructure was placed straight on top of what was already there. Most of the motorways are our walking tracks. Most of the farmlands are our farmlands. And all the waterways were our waterways. So no traditional owners left within Sydney. The land we're gathered on here this morning traditionally belonged to the Bidjigal people. And the Bidjigal people are one of 29 tribes that make up the Eora Nation. And the boundaries for the Eora Nation start from the ocean, and they're surrounded by three of Australia's most beautiful rivers. We have the Hawkesbury, the Nepean, and the Georges rivers. In between those three mighty and beautiful rivers, there are 29 tribes that make up the Eora Nation, and the name of the tribe we're gathered on here today is Bidjigal. So on behalf of those Bidjigal ancestors, because their spirit is still in the lands and the waters, on behalf of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, as the cultural authority on these lands, it gives me great honour to welcome you all here today. Welcome to Bidjigal country. I'd like to thank the powers to be for having me here as well, because by having me here, you've become a part of the rejuvenation of our tradition and culture back on the land. So I thank you. It's always an honour. Just before I leave, I was thinking about today, and I tend not to get into politics too much. But I was thinking about it. For me personally, we've had three catastrophes over the last few years. COVID, the floods and the weather, and Dominic Perrottet. COVID, out of our hands. The weather, also out of our hands. Dominic Perrottet, we can make a change. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bidjigal country. I'd love to stay, but unfortunately, I've got to go and pay a white fella by the name of Wilson for parking on my own land. And he's not cheap. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
all over long for the care they deserve. Labor's Fresh Start plan doesn't just upgrade our hospitals, it retains and attracts our vital healthcare workers, cleaners, paramedics and nurses.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free, with golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains and let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Thank you, Stephanie. Welcome to St. George. Thank you, Brendan, for your welcome to country. And thank you for all being here today. Labor members are the heart and soul of our party, and we owe you all so much. I'm Ash Lynch, the Labor candidate for Oatley. I love our community. I've lived in the St. George area for a very long time. I didn't have the typical upbringing. I was born in Sydney, raised by my uncle in Hurstville. My grandparents were teachers who taught in Port Moresby and would come every holiday to take care of me. While my uncle was studying and working, I was raised by a Maltese family in Naui. Over the years, many amazing people played an active role in my upbringing, from our neighbours to a beautiful Italian family in Earlwood, to my uncle's university and employment friends. I was immersed in diversity and was lucky to experience different cultures and religions. Before practicing as an employment industrial relations lawyer, I used to work at the University of Sydney in the anatomy department. Now, specifically, part of my role was embalming human beings and doing cadaver prosections. And I did this for several years. And I started to look at life a little bit differently, especially when you're in a mortuary for a few hours a day. When you come into this world, you bring nothing. And when you leave this world, certainly you're not taking anything with yourself. But what is really important is between those moments is what you do, who you become, how you can serve one person, a family, or a community. My work experience, my uncle, and those amazing people who raised me taught me the importance of community and the power of collective action. Labor values. It's safe to say I'm not the typical person who puts their hand up to run as an MP, or running for Parliament wasn't definitely part of my plan. But after 12 years of the Liberals' cuts to our essential services and rampant privatisation, sitting back and doing nothing was not an option. Every single day, it gets harder for our community to get by. And it's clear that after 12 years in office, Dominic Perrottet and the Liberals are all out of ideas and they don't have a plan for the state. Well, that's not entirely true. We know they have one plan. If Dominic Perrottet is re-elected, his only plan will be selling Sydney Water. We all know he won't stop there. If the Liberals are given another 4 years, every single one of our assets, the people's assets, could be up for sale. Now, I like to call it the people's assets because that's what they are. Don't forget, these assets are owned by all of us, built over decades of generations of hard-working Australians, sold off in a fleeting moment by the Liberals. Privatisation has ripped the heart of our communities. Skyrocketing tolls, rip-off power bills, local bus services slash, and all for what? Corporations to make a super profit. If the Liberals sell off Sydney Water, it will be no different. We've seen it happen in other countries, massive increases to water bills, pensioners have their water cut off, raw sewage pumped into seas. This is what's awaiting for us in 20 days' time if Perrottet gets his way. But things can be different. Chris Minns and the Labor team have energy and fresh ideas for our state, and they need it right now. Instead of selling off Sydney Water, we will build a publicly owned renewable energy company. Instead of backstabbing and infighting, we will tackle housing and our rental crisis head on. And instead of working out how to rort the next grants program, we will back our teachers, our nurses, and our essential workers and pay them properly. But I mean, we only have 20 days. 20 days to stop the sale of Sydney Water, 20 days until we can fix the crisis in our hospitals, 20 days until we can make renting fair, 20 days to change the future of our state. Now, make no mistake here, these 20 days count. That's why my team and I have been every day knocking on doors, listening to our community. The message is very clear. The community supports Labor's plan to stop privatisation. The community supports Labor's plan to resurrect education and our health system and back our workers. The community supports Labor's plan to bring back domestic manufacturing. Our community wants a fresh start, and I know Chris Minns and the Labor government will deliver just that. Friends, join me after today's launch as we knock on doors in the seat of Oatley. With your help, we can win this. Now, I mean, just under a year ago, Australia chose a better future. And what a difference it has made. Right. We now have a federal government that is focused on integrity, respect, and compassion. And our next speaker is the man who led us on that journey almost 1 year ago. Friends, please give a warm welcome to the Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese.
Thank you for that warm New South Wales Labor welcome. I begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. I pay my respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, and I recommit on behalf of the government that I proudly lead to the implementation of the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. We are on such a great journey together. Recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our nation's birth certificate is the next step on that journey. Rising to the vision we have of ourselves as a people and living the spirit of the fair go. Australians are good at getting things done. We're good at coming together for the sake of a better future. Friends, in just 3 weeks, we can come together to choose a better future for New South Wales. The choice is oh so clear. On the one hand, a government that is falling apart before our eyes, cracking like an imported light rail carriage, breaking down like an outsourced ferry, plagued by scandal, dogged by resignation, and it still boggles my mind to say this, even stooping so low as to rort bushfire aid. Imagine the deficit of character that it takes to even think of doing that, let alone do it. To look at fellow Australians who have been through hell and left with nothing and calculating how they might help you secure a political advantage. And at their shoulders stand their big cousins, the federal Libs and Nats, a coalition ready to say no to any solution that will help Australians, even though they created so many of the problems that we face. After all the damage they did, the coalition have nothing left but a grab bag of negativity and scare campaigns. To adapt the Franklin D. Roosevelt quote, they have nothing to offer but fear itself. Friends, something so much better awaits New South Wales, and it starts with a great leader, a leader with vision, a leader of compassion and empathy, a leader guided by fairness, equality and integrity, a leader whose instinct is to bring people together, a leader who has surrounded himself with a united team, distinguished by its talent and the trust in which they are so deservedly held. A leader who chose to be constructive during the pandemic, shutting the easy spotlight so many opposition leaders seized because he put the health and well-being and the confidence and certainty of the people of New South Wales above politics. But friends, being constructive doesn't mean a pushover or offering a blank cheque. Chris Minns is a leader who will always stand up for what is right. A leader who doesn't pick fights, but doesn't shy away from them either. A leader energised by the great enduring Labor values that add up to the desire to make a positive and lasting difference. A leader who knows what really matters to the people of this great state that I'm proud to call home. A good education for their children, proper health care for their family, reliable public transport for their suburb, keeping the costs of essentials down, keeping public assets in public hands. and showing respect for taxpayer money, investing it where it's needed, not treating it as a party donation. That, friends, is a Labor leader. And friends, I can tell you that Chris Minns is a true Labor leader. Now, friends, I have had the good fortune of knowing him and Anna for many years now. And what I know without doubt is that Chris embodies all that is best about the Australian Labor Party. He embodies what makes us the Australian Labor Party. He is a leader whose vision is one that always has people at its heart. Now, as we emerge from the pandemic to face not just an ever-growing number of challenges, but an ever-growing number of opportunities, he is the leader that New South Wales needs. And with Chris, his great team, and all of the energy and talent that they will bring to government, they'll need every ounce they can muster. When Labor won the federal election last May, we faced the task of cleaning up after a decade of Liberal national waste and dysfunction. It is a task we are equal to because we have the right people and we have the right policies. New South Wales Labor faces a similar challenge, cleaning up after 12 years of Liberal national neglect. It's a job that New South Wales Labor can get done. And in Chris Minns, you have the right leader and the right team ready to put your fresh start plan into action. Now, on the 25th of March, this great state can choose a greater future. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce the man who will lead New South Wales there. Please give a big hand for my friend, the next Premier of New South Wales, Chris Minns.
Thank you so much, everybody. I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I want to acknowledge and thank the Prime Minister of this country, Anthony Albanese. Thanks, Anthony. I want to acknowledge my Deputy, Prue Carr. Our wonderful candidate for the state seat of Oatley, Ash. What a great job she did this morning. The former Premier of New South Wales, Maurice Yemma. all the Labor rank and file members, candidates and MPs, members of trade unions across New South Wales, and of course my family, my wife Anna, who's here today, and my son Joe. 12 months ago, Labor won the seats of Bega and Strathfield in by-elections. And it was a big shot in the arm for a team that hadn't won a state election for, at that time, 15 years. For the first time in history, Bega would be represented by a Labor Member of Parliament, Dr. Michael Holland. Friends, I said on the night that as encouraging as the results are, and despite the fact that Jason, Yatsen Lee and Michael had attracted thousands of votes, we had to be honest. At that time, these wins were more a protest vote against the government than a vote for New South Wales Labor. I was realistic about the result, and I was realistic about the work we needed to do over the last 12 months to get ready for this election campaign, but more importantly, to get ready for the challenges and opportunities of government in New South Wales. But with 20 days to go before this general election, I can say that with a united, disciplined team, a committed group that is prepared to repair our essential services and a plan to bring back train building and domestic manufacturing with a strong commitment against privatisation, the time has come to cast a positive vote for a Labor majority government on March the 25th. To vote for a fresh start for New South Wales. Now, there will be some who say, I'm okay with the fresh start, but I mainly just want to get rid of this government. And we'll take their votes too. But make no mistake, this election is a choice. Labor will make choices to repair our essential services. We'll make tough choices to protect the budget. We'll choose to end pork barrelling across the state. Dominic Perrottet's Liberal National Government will also make choices. Choices on wages for essential workers, on the sale of government assets, and on sending their friends to high-paying, taxpayer-funded positions all over the world. But there's no more important choice than the choice we make to invest in our education system. Parents across our state hand our kids over to people we've often never met before, and we ask them to get them ready for the world. We pass over the most precious thing we have so that they can be given the most important gift that there is, an education. And just as any tearful parent will tell you, on the day one of your first child's first day of school, however, by the third kid, if you're anything like Anna and I, you've swapped the tissues for champagne. Education is more important than money, than an inheritance, more important than a title or a block of land. It's the gift of an unlimited future. Every single person in this audience can point to a teacher who literally changed their lives, opened them up to new interests, new possibilities, a love for history or music, or a deeper passion for science or mathematics. A teacher can pick an insecure teenager and see something in them that they don't see in themselves, and then build brick by brick the knowledge and confidence to unleash them on the world. And don't let anybody tell you that a computer program or a smartphone app or a website can replace that teacher. You can't replace them. Now, I know that better than most because I had the honour of watching my dad build a successful life for himself and our loving family and home during a 40-year career as a New South Wales public school teacher, and he's here with us today. He didn't know I was going to do that, so there you go, Dad. Our state and our country future rests on the education of the next generation of young Australians. But I ask you, is that going to happen when the results we're getting from our schools are getting worse, not better? We were once ranked third in the world when it comes to science. We've dropped all the way back down to 23. Sixth in the world when it comes to reading. We've tumbled 17 places. We were ninth in the world for maths. We're now ranked 31. Last year, there were over 3,000 teacher vacancies, and as a result, thousands of cancelled and merged classes right across the state. To deal with the crisis, the Liberals and Nationals chose in 2021 to spend $14 million on a program to recruit teachers from around the world. That was their idea to fix the problems in our education system. They recruited just 12. Now, there's no magic here. We need to recruit and retain local teachers, and Labor has a plan to do it. We'll offer 10,000 temporary teachers a permanent job in New South Wales public education. Thank you. We'll slash 5 hours of admin work for your average teacher in a New South Wales school. And so we can strike a fair deal for essential workers right across New South Wales. We will remove the wages cap. In New South Wales today, the number of young people completing the HSC is now 73%. But in comparison to other states, in Victoria, the number's 84%, and Queensland comes in at 81%. If a late teenager isn't in school, then we'd expect them to be in a trade. But apprenticeships have also dropped from 52,000 in 2011 to just 25,000 last year. So not in a trade and not in school. Well, it's just not good enough. After 3 years of COVID, I am not going to allow a lost generation of kids who will miss out on good jobs and great opportunities because they missed their education. Friends, we're going to turn it around, and today I can announce Labor will create 1,000 additional apprenticeships across the New South Wales government. The New South Wales government is the largest employer in the country, yet we employ only 1,300 apprentices. We need to do better. We need to lead the way. Labor will increase that by almost 75%. With on-the-job training in places like Sydney Water, Essential Energy, and our new Energy Security Corporation. This year, that's a 3-year commitment of $94 million. It's on top of the 200 apprentices that we'll create by building our new Tangara trains right here in New South Wales. It's on top of the 1,000 apprentices we'll train every year at our new TAFE Centres of Excellence in Western Sydney, the Illawarra and the Hunter. It's important for our kids, but it's important for the state too. It will have a major positive impact on our economy. It helps address the skills crisis, particularly in the building industry. We'll help the next generation of tradies get the skills they need to take off. We'll back them. We want them to start a business. We want them to take a chance and then eventually to employ their own apprentices and start this process all over again. My message to the next generation of young Australians is clear. we back you, and under a Labor government, your potential is unlimited. A Labor government I lead will make the investments required to ensure we've got the workforce to achieve long-term sustainable economic growth. Economies don't just run on roads, through tunnels or along power lines. They also rest on the backs of hard-working people that are trying to get ahead, who are educated and ready to make a contribution to their community and this country. Only Labor believes in investing in the future of our economy by investing in the future of our workforce. Friends, there's nothing more worrying for a parent than taking a child to an emergency department in the middle of the night. Now, most of us aren't doctors or nurses, and when your child isn't well and you don't know the reason why, the dread of the unknown creeps up on you. People felt a similar anxiety during the COVID emergency, but we were met at vaccination centres and emergency departments by dedicated and hard-working hospital staff. And it wasn't just doctors and nurses, although of course they were part of it. It was also orderlies and cleaners. These people who put on their uniform and believed deep in their bones that their job was not just a paycheck, it was a commitment to public service. Today, even after the darkest of the COVID emergency, our health system is reporting some of the worst statistics that we've ever seen. The wait times in emergency rooms today are longer than at any point in New South Wales' history. Our emergency departments are being run into the ground. 1 in 10 are waiting almost 20 hours to be admitted in an emergency department in New South Wales. There are disturbing reports of wards that are laying empty because staff shortages or patients having to miss life-saving cancer treatments because of cost or a lack of access. We've got the second lowest number of paramedics of any Australian state, and they are the lowest paid. I spoke with a paramedic named Tess yesterday afternoon. She's a HSU member. She's been in the job for the past 14 years. She joined the service and it was a lifelong dream. Last Friday, her shift was meant to be 12 hours, but instead her and her partner had an emergency job, and of course it went to 14 hours. That was due, of course, because of a job that she just couldn't put back. She had to do it. Now, when she joined the profession, paramedics were talking about amongst themselves what communities they hoped to work in and what promotions they saw opening up. Tess says the talk now before and after a shift is what state they'll move to and what profession they'll flee to. Tess spoke about rolling into jobs that have been called in 5 or 6 hours earlier because of ramping in hospitals and a lack of paramedics in the field. Now, Tess can't work any harder, and there's no more hours that she can put into it anymore. She's not able to kick out patients from her ambulance. There's a similar story when it comes to our nurses. Melissa is an emergency nurse at Liverpool Hospital. She sustained a rib fracture after an assault from a patient suffering a mental health episode. And of course, on that shift where that episode took place, it was short-staffed. Friends, 67,000 people walked into an ED in the last 3 months and turned around and left without receiving any treatment at all. There are 100,000 people on the elective surgery waiting list, the highest ever recorded, including 4,000 children. Our health system is sitting on the shoulders of Tess and Melissa, but we can't expect them to bear the load by themselves. They need help, and under New South Wales Labor, help is on the way. So today I can announce in government we will deliver new university scholarships for thousands of nurses, doctors, paramedics and allied health workers each year to staff our public hospitals. We will invest $76 million in subsidies to attract staff and retain talent in New South Wales public health. Students undertaking a healthcare degree will be eligible for a subsidy on their study expenses if they commit to work in the system for a minimum of 5 years. These students studying paramedicine, nursing, midwifery and allied health. Every year, 2,000 healthcare students will be eligible to apply for a study subsidy of $12,000 to help pay for their degree. But because our health system simply can't wait, current students who are already enrolled can access a one-off payment of $8,000 when they graduate. Now, that'll be open to 2,000 places a year for the next 3 years, and they'll have to make the same commitment. But we are determined to bring skilled people into our health system in New South Wales. Our frontline paramedics are overworked and understaffed. Too many are leaving for Queensland and Victoria. Now, one of my first commitments as New South Wales Labor leader was to hire 500 more rural and regional paramedics in our first term of office. But that alone isn't enough. We need to give paramedics the tools they need to succeed. And it shouldn't matter whether you live in the city or the country. Everyone should be able to access quality healthcare quickly. So I can announce today that we will invest $70 million to build 3 new helicopter ambulance bases to reduce emergency times in regional and rural New South Wales. This will help close the gap times between ambulances arriving for rural communities, and it will help save lives. But we won't stop there. We want to help our paramedics do even more, empower them to use their full skills and give them more powers and more capabilities, because their work has changed dramatically in the last few years. They're on the front lines when we need them most, administering life-saving drugs, stabilising critical patients, keeping people out of hospital by treating them at home and in the community. So a Labor government in New South Wales will finally address professional recognition of our paramedics. And we'll do it in our first year of government because there's nothing more important in government than keeping people safe and healthy. Right. Friends, over the last decade, my parliamentary colleagues and I have watched the Premier passionately advocate on behalf of privatisation. We've counted up 50 occasions in just the last 12 months where the Premier's regaled us with his commitment to the big sell. Every time he's asked about it, he gives the same answer: sell it. Even when he's not asked about it, he manages to turn the conversation around to talk about the wonders of asset recycling. Now, I know what you're thinking. Geez, I hope I don't get sat next to this bloke at a dinner party. But just last week, he came out and said, despite selling off $90 billion worth of assets owned by the people of New South Wales over the last 12 years, with everything from WestConnex, Ausgrid, Endeavour Energy, Transgrid, the Sydney desalination plant and the Port of Newcastle, just to name a few, enough was enough. And he had no more, wait for it, plans to privatise anything anymore. But don't forget, that's exactly what he said before the last state election. We were promised that if they were elected, the days of privatisation were behind them. Back then, he had no plans to sell anything off either. But straight after polling day, they sold the remaining stake of WestConnex and Regions 7, 8 and 9 of the bus network. They even tried to sell off the timber industry and only stopped because someone told them that it had burned down. Over the last 12 years, Dominic Perrottet has built a political philosophy, an economic ideology and a parliamentary career on the foundation stone of privatisation. As long as he is Premier, privatisation will continue. Now, the implications of privatisation for the average family budget are serious. The sale of Ausgrid saw prices for average families go up 10%. For Endeavour, it was an additional 15%. WestConnex will deliver $70 billion in tolls over the life of those contracts to a private company. Now, to put this in perspective, the company was sold to the private investor for just $20 billion. The costs of privatisation have been so large, the impacts on family budgets have been so big that it prompted the Liberals and Nationals in desperation to claim that all of a sudden they had the power to stop the grocery bills exploding. Now, how is never explained. But really, if the New South Wales government had the power to slash grocery bills for you and your family, why would you have waited 12 years to do it? Friends, it's nonsense. The Premier is fond of saying the best indication of future performance is past performance. And what are we to make of his past performance? $50 billion of unfunded infrastructure liabilities, with the state in $187 billion worth of debt. There's only one way to fill that black hole, and that's to sell off assets like Sydney Water. Now, I've got no doubt big companies can't wait to get their hands on a monopoly asset like our water. And no flies on them. They're smart enough to buy it. But my message to the people of New South Wales couldn't be clearer. Don't elect a government that's dumb enough to sell it. New South Wales Labor will never sell Sydney Water or Hunter Water or Essential Energy or the remaining stake in our electricity assets. Because once they've gone and you've sold everything off, how do you build for the future? Friends, tough choices will face us if we win government on March the 25th. The current government has spent $1 billion on a staggering 10,000 consultant engagements over the past 4 years. Just last week, the Auditor General found the consultant spending wasn't being managed or evaluated properly. We'll end this exorbitant waste. We'll find savings to make sure our public services run better. It's far too top-heavy in the New South Wales public service, and the money must be directed where it's needed most, to those that deliver the services. We'll also be honest about where and when we will build the infrastructure of the future. I'm not interested in dangling the false hope of transport infrastructure just prior to an election, only for the people to discover in the fine print that the metro line won't be built for 30 years into the future. I'll build as much infrastructure as I can, as soon as I can, wherever I can, but I will not privatise assets to do it. There's no point selling your house to fund an upgrade of your driveway, which is why Labor will focus on delivering as much infrastructure as we can afford as soon as we can afford it, without selling off, and they're irreplaceable assets like Sydney Water. Now, after the disaster of COVID and the running down of our essential services and those who work in them, we must rebuild. It's an urgent priority of government. If we have 4 more years of resignations and cuts or a demoralised workforce, it may mean we're never properly able to rebuild. Our essential workers, our paramedics, our nurses, our midwives, our teachers are heroes. They're not economic bandits that are seeking to bankrupt the state. They're people who've dedicated their professional lives to serving the people of New South Wales. 4 years of COVID and a government that has shown they're not interested in investing in them. It's meant that our kids aren't doing as well as we'd hoped them to do in our schools, and our emergency departments are falling apart at the seams. It means our ambulances are stuck idling at the front of hospital driveways. It's clear we need a fresh start. The last few weeks have also shown the chaos and division inside this 12-year-old government. They don't look like they want to win. They don't even look like they want the responsibilities of office. Deep down, they know they've run out of gas, they've run out of ideas, and they've run out of energy. Many of them can't stand to be in the same room as each other anymore. But I want to speak directly to those who cast a vote for the coalition at the last election. There's a big choice for you to make about who's got the best plans for the state of New South Wales. We know the big issues, and we've got detailed plans to solve them. But perhaps more importantly, I can tell you who our ministers will be in a future Labor government. Joe Halen in Transport. We know her job's to improve on-time running on the network. Ryan Park in Health. And if you know Ryan, you know he'll work tirelessly to solve our health crisis. Anilak in Finance to build the replacement trains right here in New South Wales for the Tangaras. Prue Carr in Education. Daniel Mookie as Treasurer. Penny Sharp in the Environment. Now, this government has 15 ministers from the last election that have already left or are not planning on recontesting the March 25th election. That includes the Health Minister, the Cities and Infrastructure Minister, the Innovation Minister, the Fair Trading and Small Business Minister, the Corrections Minister, and the Transport Minister, all who are in Cabinet but are not even recontesting their seats. Now, we've got no idea who'll replace them. We don't know what their priorities would be. We don't even know if they'd be up for the job. It's clear the government's best days are behind them and their most experienced people have left. Friends, I lead a team that has learned the lessons from 12 years in opposition. It's united and disciplined and focused on you. It's hungry for the responsibilities of office and has a clear plan to reform essential services in the state. We'll listen to the people and provide a clear way forward, and we'll do it all without privatising government assets. Friends, Labor is ready and this state is ready for a fresh start, but we need to do it together. Thank you so much.